Thanks for joining us tonight for a very, very special evening of a lot of cool partnerships that have come together to make this new play and process sharing possible. So I have some thanks that I want to get not out of the way. That makes it sound really bad. We're so grateful for these people and these organizations, but I want to start with them, and there's a lot of them. So I'll try to be as succinct as possible, okay? I want to thank our board and our advisory board and our sponsors. We have a number of sponsors this season. Most of them are up in the Wood River Valley. Atkinson's, Backwood Mountain Sports, Concord Theatricals, 5 Beehives, Liberty Theater, Michael Olenek, and Wall Property Management. So we're very grateful for their support. Tonight's reading is made possible because of 4 partners that we have that are both in the Wood River Valley and here in Boise. So up in the valley, we have the Argyros and we have the community library. Those are our partners that we've been working with for several years at this point. And then here this year, we are working with Boise Contemporary Theater, which is where we are tonight. Thank you, Boise Contemporary Theater. And also Boise State University's Department of Theater, Film, and Creative Writing. We are working with a number of their students tonight, and it has been a pretty spectacular several days of development with them. So thank you to them as well. We have a lot of support that made tonight and a lot of our programming this October possible. So I want to call out the City of Boise Department of Arts and History, Idaho Commission on the Arts, Idaho Humanities Council, Spur Community Foundation, as well as the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. So thank you for all of the support that has made our fall possible. The Sun Valley Playwrights Residency, our mission is to give playwrights time and resources and time in Idaho, in the beauty of Idaho, to create new work. And part of that as well is to be in conversation with the community. And our residency is unique in a lot of ways. We're basically on our 4th year. We started during the pandemic. A lot of residencies around the country that did the kind of work that we do are shuttered, to be frank. And Rajiv and I will probably talk a little bit about that during the Q&A. And so when John Kane and I started the residency 4 years ago, we wanted to do things a little differently. And so the way that we structure the residency is a writer comes out in October. And through our partnership with the community library up in Ketchum, they spend up to a month at the historic Hemingway House in the really awesome apartment that is on the ground floor in what used to be the garage area. And they ideate and they write, and I'm going to ask Rajiv tonight how he spent his 3 weeks there last October working on this play. And then the writer goes home. And then they return a year later, which is where we are meeting Rajiv right now, with a draft of the play. The plays are always in process when we're sharing them with you. These are not finished products. They're not at the finish line. And that's the exciting thing. You're here tonight to help work for us, to work for Rajiv, to help us hear what is working, what's not working, the surprises that maybe we haven't encountered over the last several days in the rehearsal room. It's always helpful to bring in an audience. So that's how you're helping us tonight. So thank you for being here to do some work for us. Couple of housekeeping things. First of all, before I forget, because it's not in my notes, please turn off your cell phones. All the way off. BCT has this awesome announcement about turning them off. I'm not going to give that awesome announcement. Just please take them out, turn them off. We are recording the Q&A portion of the evening, just the very, very beginning. And if we have cell phones that are going off or connecting to Wi-Fi and stuff, it screws with the mics. So please turn them off. There'll be a couple of breaks tonight. We'll do the Q&A. That'll be about a half an hour conversation or so, and then we'll take a little break. And you can go out into the lobby, go to the concession stand, and while you're doing that, there's a demographic survey, which I know is not the most interesting thing in the world to have to fill out. You don't have to do it. It's optional. Here's the deal. It's incredibly helpful for us in reporting to our grantors or grantor, the people who are granting us money, who we're serving, who we aren't serving. It's also helpful for us. And so they're out there. If you wouldn't mind filling them out, it would be so incredibly helpful. No, before I get to that. We're getting to the end of the year. There's some information out in the lobby and in your playbills about how to support the Playwrights Residency. If you are the kind of person that makes year-end gifts, the support that we get from everybody in any amount makes a huge difference. I like to say that we are a very small but mighty nonprofit. So really, if you can donate $5, if you can donate $1 million, we would love you. We get that not everybody can do that. There's information in your playbill. You can go to our website. There's envelopes out there. There's a lot of different ways that you can give us money. And please also considering giving to the organizations that are our partners. Boise Contemporary Theater is so amazing for hosting us tonight. And the Argyros and the community library, these are incredible partners that are also in the same kind of position that we are, asking for money because it's the end of October. It's not the end of the year, but the end of the year is approaching. All right, that's my spiel about asking you to support us. Last thing, the structure of tonight. So, in a moment, I'm going to ask Rajiv to come up. We'll do our Q&A. It'll mostly be about the creative process, giving you a little insight into where you're meeting us with this play tonight. So what got Rajiv to this moment with this play? And that'll be helpful context, I think, for then the reading. So after the Q&A, we'll take a little break. And like I said, you can go get a drink, and then we'll come back. We'll read Act 1, we'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and read Act 2. And that is how tonight will work. So I'm done monologuing at you. I would like a glass of water, but I don't have one up here. I would like to invite, though, Rajiv Joseph to the stage.
Hi.
I'm going to share, this is always the awkward part where I share a little bit about people's bios when you're sitting there with his bio, but I do want to say a couple of things out loud.
Okay.
Because you're awesome and I want people to know how awesome and accomplished you are. So Rajiv's play Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo was a 2010 Pulitzer Prize finalist for drama. It was also awarded a grant for Outstanding New American Play by the NEA. He has twice won the Obie Award for Best New American Play. First in 2016 with Guards at the Taj, and then in 2018 with Describe the Night. All of his other plays are listed in his bio. They are incredible. They're wonderful. He writes in TV and film, and he served for 3 years in the Peace Corps in Senegal. Rajiv, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Spending this year working on a new play with us.
Yeah.
I want to start off, you had never been to Idaho until we asked you to come out last October.
That's right.
And you had never been to Boise until
this week.
Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you what you think of Idaho, but I'm curious like how we'll get into, spending time at the Hemingway House and how that maybe informed your work and stuff. But generally speaking, I'm wondering how being in Idaho, being in a place that you had never been before, how it has informed you, your work, generally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I had never been to Idaho. I came last year to catch him in Sun Valley for 3 weeks, and it was incredible. I mean, it's such a beautiful part of this country, a part of the country I had not seen before, and to be able to be given a place that your job is, hey, go write something new in this beautiful space for 3 weeks alone, is actually it's quite a gift. It's a really incredible opportunity. And on top of that, there was outreach I did with the community. I taught a class at the high school. I did a little kind of Q&A like this at the community library in Sun Valley. And also every day I took myself on these incredible hikes that were really important for the actual writing of the play. To write in the morning and then go for an afternoon hike and think about what I've been writing. It's all very new. It's, usually for me, a play will take between 2 to 3 years to write. And right now we're at just about a year, and I have, what we could refer to as a first draft of the play, which is, if you want to imagine it like a big painting, it's like the pencil drawings on the canvas. The colors aren't there yet. The shading's not there. The reality actually isn't even there. But there's a sense of it, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I think that wherever you are, where you're writing, especially if you're in someplace new that you've never been, someplace beautiful, that sort of environment seeps into the writing as well.
Do you mind if we just take a step back for a second? And I'm sure you've told this story many times, but when I heard you tell it at the end of September, the story of the origins of Bengal Tiger, I think for a lot of people, when we talk about what new play development is, what we've been doing, what I have devoted most of my career doing, and what you spend a lot of your time doing in rehearsal rooms, it's a bit of a mystery for folks who aren't in those rehearsal rooms.
Sure.
So can you just share the origin story of Bengal Tiger and how new play development sort of came into play with that?
Right. So a background for me, I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I did my undergraduate work in a southern Ohio state school called Miami University. And then I went to the Peace Corps. I was in Senegal for 3 years. I came back and I moved to New York, and I was trying to be a writer. And I ended up going to NYU for screenwriting. And the program was for both screenwriting and playwriting. And I was a big movie fan, and I didn't know much about theater, actually. But then I started taking theater classes. I started going to plays, and I was really inspired. And I had a teacher who, one of our assignments was, go into the newspaper. This is, for those young people out there, a newspaper is a piece of media that existed not too long ago, where you would actually buy it at a newsstand, and that's how you would get your news every day. So she asked us to go into a newspaper and find an article that wasn't necessarily, it wasn't that it was interesting to us, but that we saw something in it that was inspiring or something that could be a play, And the first time I did this assignment, I found something, I don't even remember what it was, but I liked the assignment so much that I started doing that. I started buying the newspaper, looking through it, and anytime I saw anything, I would cut out an article and I'd paste it into a notebook. So I had a kind of a notebook of potential ideas, And then during this time, it was 2003, and the war in Iraq had just begun, and I was reading a lot about the war, and I was confused by it. I didn't understand it. I was struggling to even have a coherent perspective on it, And I came across this article in the newspaper. It was in the back page of the New York Times. It was about this big, and it was about how some of the U.S. bombs had blown open part of the Baghdad Zoo, and animals had escaped, and the zookeepers had left, and some of the animals who were still in their cages were going hungry, and soldiers were put in the zoo to guard it because people were looting the animals. And these two soldiers were guarding a caged Bengal tiger at night, and it was the only Bengal tiger in the entire Middle East, and it had been in the zoo for years, and it was starving because no one was feeding it. And one of the soldiers tried to feed the tiger, and ended up getting his hand bitten off by the tiger, and the other soldier then impulsively shot and killed the tiger. And that was the end of the article. It was just that. And I was totally taken by this article. I thought it was bizarre. I thought it was surreal. I thought it was tragic. I thought there was symbolism in it that I didn't even understand. And so I wrote a 10-minute play, because in grad school they have these 10-minute play contests. And so the 10-minute play I wrote was two soldiers talking to each other, and in a cage was a man not dressed as a tiger, but who was a tiger. Theatrically, we understood he was, and he was talking to the audience in this kind of grizzled, sort of Tom Waitsian, vernacular, where he was just it sucks to be a tiger in Baghdad in a cage. And he's kind of monologuing to the audience while the two soldiers are talking to each other, and there's a sort of rhythmic kind of back and forth. The soldiers talk to each other, and every so often they observe the tiger, and they're like, this guy is hungry, and he's like, we shouldn't feed him, and blah, blah, blah. And then what happens in the article happens in the scene. He tries to feed the tiger bites his hand off, the other soldier shoots him, and then the tiger's ghost steps out of the cage. and for the first time in his life sees his own body. And the line is like, well, that's what I look like. You know, he'd never seen himself before. And that was the end of the play. And it was a 10-minute play, and I submitted it to the 10-minute play festival at NYU and didn't get in, and was told by my teachers and by my colleagues that it was no good. And so I just went into a drawer in my desk, but every so often I pull it out and look at it, and I was like, I think I like this, but everyone tells me it's no good. And then I had the great fortune of, after grad school, being selected by this group called the Lark Play Development Center, and I was able to come in, and they have a playwright workshop where you bring in new pages of a play that you're just starting, and actors will read it in a big circle like this, and people will listen to it and then comment on it, and there's like 4 or 5 writers per week. And so I brought in that 10-minute play, and it went over like gangbusters. Like all of a sudden, everyone in the room was like, this is wonderful. What happens next? And I was like, I hadn't thought about that because this is a 10-minute play. But then I decided next time I came in, I just brought the next scene. And I brought the next scene after that. And I actually wrote many, many, many scenes, many more that are in the play. But I just kept on bringing in random scenes every week and hearing them and deciding if it was good or not, but realizing that I had something that was maybe gonna be okay, you know. And then when I was finally finished it, I had an agent, and he sent it out to all the theaters in New York, and they all said no. And he sent it out to all the regional theaters in the country, and they all said no, except for this one regional theater in Los Angeles called Center Theater Group. And they put it in their smallest theater, and it went up there, and it was a big success. And they brought it to their bigger theater the next year, and it was an even bigger success, and that's the year it was the finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. And then the following year, it went to Broadway, where it starred Robin Williams as the tiger in the play. And, you know, and this is all to say, it's not to like toot my own horn, because I didn't do this by myself. In fact, I never would have done it without play development, without people sitting in a room with me and hearing fresh pages and saying, yeah, this is not bad. And sometimes that's all it takes, is that little encouragement to say, like, what happens next? And I hadn't even ever thought of that until I had been in that room. And so that's really, you know, what is so important about this. And like, I had the great fortune, as I said, to be part of the Lark right when I was coming out of grad school, right when I was starting my career. And every single play that I've ever written, I've developed in some way, shape, or form through the programs at the Lark. And then the pandemic hit, and the Lark couldn't survive the pandemic. And it is no longer an organization. And a few years ago, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to write a play again. I don't have that community, that opportunity, that, you know, the resources that it provided me. And so I went to my friend who runs the program at Fordham University and said, hey, look, I need to write a play, and I can't do it by myself. I need actors to read it. I need to put it up in a way that there's no pressure, where there's no critics, there's no, you know, it's not the New York theater scene. It's just like people that are going to do it. Can your students do it? And she said, sure. And shortly after that, I got an email from John Baker and John Kane saying, hey, would you like to be part of this residency? And then suddenly I was, again, the great fortune to have people saying, we'd like to see your early work and talk about it. And that's why we're here tonight.
I love hearing you tell that story, because you innately know how to tell a story so well. Like, there's like the structure of that story. It's like every time I'm like on the verge of tears here. So let's pick up then with, we give you a call and we talk with you. We talk with May Adrales from Fordham. We're all like, actually May and I are both former Larkies too. Like we also like spent a lot of time at the Lark. And we're sort of like, hey, we want to give you resources. And you're like, I've never been to Idaho. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And so we bring you out last October for the beginning of your residency and talk to everybody about what that process, that it wasn't a month, it was 3 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. A long time, in the Hemingway house. And that's a lot of alone time in a very special house.
Yes.
Talk to us about when you arrived, what did you have of the play, and what did you then do for those 3 weeks and leave with?
When I came, I had really nothing except the idea of what I thought the play might be about. And that idea came from, Someone heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I can't open it. I had the idea. May, who's the director who runs the Fordham program, is an old friend of mine. She said, "Look, if you're going to write a play for us, we need to have a big cast. It needs to be at least 12 people." And so I said, "Okay, I've never written a 12-person play before." And so I said, "Okay, I'll write a play for 12 people. 6 men, 6 women." And I started, and that was kind of my prompt. And then I thought about, my girlfriend had sent me a link to a beautiful kind of interactive piece in the Times, New York Times, about this kind of ancient medieval calendar, and how the calendar, it was like all this beautiful artwork that kind of depicted a year in the life of this estate in 16th century France. And it was very gorgeous and beautiful. And I started thinking about, 12 characters, 12 months in a year, 12 zodiac signs. Maybe that's my structure. Maybe it's a 12-scene play, and every character is represented by one of the months. And I thought, that's interesting to me. And I thought, well, I don't know much about zodiac or horoscope, which is not always a bad thing when you're starting to write something. Sometimes it's kind of a good thing. It's like you have this sort of like ignorance that helps. And I thought, well, maybe I'll create my own horoscope. So that's kind of what this play is. This play is kind of like it's an alternate zodiac system, So if you don't know anything about zodiac, don't worry. And if you do, then I hope that you like it, but you might not. And so that's what I came into Idaho with. And then I didn't know the characters really. I didn't know what the story was. I knew it was a year. And I actually spent most of the time in the Hemingway house, mapping it. I wrote biographies for all the characters. I had a calendar on a big whiteboard in there, January through December, and I figured out whose sign, what sign was for what, and whose sign was whose. And if I told this story in all these little pieces, how does it kind of cohere into a larger story? I still don't know, because we're not there yet. But what was interesting to me was the play itself is a constellation, in which every scene is like a pinprick of light, and then there's another scene that's a different pinprick of light, and another scene that's a different pinprick of light. And you might be sitting in your seats wondering, okay, where's this going? And my hope as the writer is that as time passes, as the light shifts, as your perspective shifts watching the story, you might be able to sit back and start to see that it is a larger idea, or it is a story, or it is a shape that makes sense to you. So that's where we're at now. And this is the largest cast play you've ever written, correct? Yes. So what has that been, has that been intimidating for you? Has it been freeing for you? Is it just sort of, so many of your plays I feel like you challenge yourself with each new play you write. You're not writing the same play over and over again. No, but I have developed a real taste and relish for writing 2-person plays. I have a 2-person play. This is not that. This is not that. And so in that way, it's quite freeing. It's quite oh my God, look at all this space. It's like going from driving a motorcycle to a Winnebago, which, depending on your perspective, might be either great or not so great. There's pros and cons to both. But I think that it's been real interesting. The other challenge I set for myself is I didn't want there to be really any smaller parts. I wanted every part, every actor to have kind of meaty scenes. And so you'll see that there's actually not a distinct protagonist to this play. It's very much of an ensemble piece. And so we fast forward a year. Mm-hmm. And we're here. You've described where we are with the play right now. Can you talk a little bit what this week, what the last several days has been like, process-wise, and working with 12 young actors? Mm-hmm. How that has helped you, how it's informed the play? Right. Well, I mean, when I talk about that that moment where Bengal Tiger took off, like when suddenly I got people telling me yes to it, it wasn't really like it's easy. It's like the easy accusation is to say like my professors and my colleagues at NYU were idiots because they didn't see the brilliance of this 10-minute play. But the fact is that none of them heard it. And the difference between hearing and reading a play is huge. You know, I mean, even if you are a professional, it's huge. And I always compare it to like music. You know, when you write a scene for 4 people, it's like writing a quartet. And you have to give that music to the musicians to play it. And once they play it, you're like, oh my God, like you're really way off key because I wrote you in the wrong key, or you're too loud, or you're too soft. Like you need to hear it to do any kind of work on it. And so that's what happened in The Lark with the Bengal Tiger, and that's what's happened this week, is that like I had a lot of raw material. I came here with not even the full first act, and now we have, you know, technically speaking, 2 acts. You will find that at least in one scene, the actors are going to stop being their characters and are just going to address you and tell you, yeah, the scene doesn't exist here anymore, but it'll exist at some point. So just so you're ready for that, because it's not some weird avant-garde twist to the play.
Well, like yesterday, you came in yesterday. There were scenes that are now like, they're not there today. You came in with new pages today.
Yeah. I mixed some scenes up. I rewrote some scenes. And I'm a big rewriter. Like I like to tinker. I like to, when I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's not working at all. I'm going to go home and I'm going to rewrite that right away. And sometimes it's very easy to do that rewrite. And then sometimes you do it and you're like, oh, no, it was better the first time. And you're really trapped and you don't know what to think. But oftentimes when I hear it, I can be like, I know that this doesn't work, and so I know it needs to be something else. So I will try something else, and you know, sometimes it works, and sometimes like I got to try something else again, and I feel like that's how it is for almost all the scenes in this play. The thing about these actors at Boise State is that they're just tremendous. I mean, like there's an incredible group of people that you have going to this school in this town, and all of them have such you know, curiosity and talent and instinct for new work, which is rare, because you know there's a difference between being an actor who does Chekhov and Shakespeare and an actor who does new plays. Because new plays, like I said, they're just moving and they're always percolating. And these actors, I've been giving them new pages every day, and they've been rolling with that like pros. So that's been so great and so helpful to help me hear it and help me continue to like make it into something better than it was yesterday.
And what is after this for the play? Like so it's Fordham is next. Can you talk us through like when that's happening and what happens between
now and then?
Yeah, tomorrow we go to Ketchum and we do this. We do version 2 of this.
Yes.
And then what happens between then and Fordham?
Then, well, the Fordham, we go into rehearsals in March, and we have cast that play. We did auditions for it a few weeks ago, and so I have a vague idea who the cast is. It was the first time I was ever seeing them. I don't know those actors, but we cast it, and so sometime in March we go into rehearsals for that play. My intention is that I'll have rewritten what we have tonight once or twice or 3 times before that, but maybe not. Maybe because I have other projects going on. I have other things I have to do. So it's a very good chance that the script that you see tonight stays the way it is until Fordham in March. And then I'll have 4 weeks or so of rehearsal time with those students, very similar to this in the sense that it will be at night, you know, because students have classes. So like 6 to 10 every night, we'll gather at Fordham, and just like we did this week, about 5:30 to 10 every night, and they'll read it, and it'll be staged. That'll be the difference. It won't be a reading. And that's also something that happens, is that like you can have a reading of a play that goes incredibly. And you're like, oh my God, that play is done. Like, I have no notes. It's great. And then as soon as the actors start moving on their feet, as soon as like you have to actually physically create the action on stage, it falls apart again. And so it's like, it's never just about the words. It's about so much. It's about the action. It's about how a piece of theater moves on stage and how an audience is feeling in relation to it. And those are like the frustrating aspects, but also the sort of like incredible, beautiful aspects of creating a new piece.
Yeah. Thanks so much for spending time with us this week, this year. This has been incredible. And thank everybody for being here tonight to share this experience. Like, you're entering essentially a rehearsal room.
Yep.
That's a very special thing. This isn't finished product. So let's take a little break. The actors will come out. We'll take a 5-minute break. So you can stretch your legs, you can use the bathroom, get a drink, get a little bite to eat out there, and then we'll come back and we'll read Act 1.
Thank you.